What's up, everyone? I'm going to do a movie review about this documentary that came out last year called Listening to Kenny G. It's a documentary by Penny Lane, and it's a great documentary. I'm not even really going to be assessing it because it's just thumbs up. I'm more just going to be like reporting on what I took from it about Kenny G. I gotta say, he is kind of an outsider artist to me in a weird way. Usually when you think of an outsider artist, it's like you mean that they're mentally ill or that they have literally no training on their instrument or something, like the Shags or Wesley Willis or someone who just has like no self-awareness about what they're doing. Obviously, Kenny G is sane and highly capable on his instrument, virtuosic, you might say, but his engagement with what he's doing there's something about it that's like this uncanny valley between self-awareness and naivety, and also this like self-effacing, humble, humility, but like total arrogance, like super cocky vibes. It all makes sense as a personality, but there's something very unnerving about it. Not dark. He's not a dark dude, I don't think. But as the way he talks about his own music and his engagement with music, it's unlike anything I've ever heard from a serious professional recording artist. So one of the things that's great about this movie is that Penny Lane does not have a voiceover or a narrator. It's like you're just listening to Kenny G talk and various critics and stuff. And luckily, G is articulate enough to really give you a sense of what he's thinking. The movie satisfied me on all the levels that I was looking for, which is just really him as a musician. Not so much what his music is and what it means to other people, but more like what he thinks it is and where he's coming from with it. That's really what I was fascinated to learn, and just like the body of information and knowledge that he's drawing from, or the lack of knowledge that he's drawing from. That was interesting. I mean, that's what really gave me the outsider feeling for him. You could complain about the movie that they don't talk about his childhood enough or his personal life. They really breeze over it. They only show his children for a second, and they don't talk about his ex-wife or his wife. So that made me wonder, is that because of good boundaries, or is that because there's just some horrifically dark shit going on? I don't think there is, though. I grew up middle class in Seattle. He's Jewish. He's neither, foregrounding that nor hiding it. He says kvetch once. And he breezes over his childhood, just saying that he had a great childhood. He was always happy. Everything was chill. He does not get mad. I really actually kind of love that. Just no trauma. I don't think he's hiding any weird horrors. So right off the bat, in the beginning of the film, when he's talking about music, the first thing he says is, I don't know that I love music that much. When I listen to music, I think more about the musicians and how much they had to practice. The level, see, this is what I'm talking about. There's this like self-awareness that he knows what he thinks, he's articulates it. But it's like, is he trying to mess with you? Is he trolling? I mean, that is so weird. But so this is the main thing with Kenny G, is that he practices a lot. He talks about practicing 3 to 5 hours a day for his whole life. Now, that's like top shelf jazz musician practice schedule. That's, almost Coltrane-ish in its, discipline. What he's actually practicing is a little unclear. We'll talk about that a little later. Yeah, this weird mix of humility and cockiness. He says, I'm flattered that anyone even likes my music. I was lucky to be making music. I came up at the right place at the right time. Music is subjective. A Grammy is just a popularity contest. He's got that. But then he's like, everything I set out to be good at, I become good at. He's got this megalomaniacal moments. He's like, I've got a bunch of songs ready. If someone should put them in a movie, I'll win an Oscar. I know I will. He says, my problem is I want to be the best at everything. And he talks about going on stage, and he's like, I don't just want to do my best. I want to be the best. But somewhere between the humility and the crazy arrogance, there's this solid vibe of just really being into being good at things. Like, he just wants to do a good job. You know, they show him making apple pie and folding his clothes and doing housework. And he says, he's like, I love household chores. He's like, I love the details. I love the perfection. I love getting it right. There is something about that is inspiring to me. It's cool. Especially when you're in a music world where everything's about like, oh, like, welcome to my sick mind, you know. He's like, you know, my mind's not sick. I'm doing a good job. We all knew kids like this in high school who, like, they were like band kids who didn't really care about music. They didn't have musical taste. They didn't listen to even the radio or anything, but they like played trombone in the band. And then they give it up when they go to college, or they put it on their college application. I played, trombone in the band, and then they throw it away. That's legit. Usually those people don't sell 75 million records in the 80s, but they talk to his music teacher from high school. They have a really cute relationship. He treats him like a son or like a little brother. He loves Kenny. He's this black dude who played in a lot of like funk bands and the funk and R&B stuff. And he brought Kenny on some professional gigs when he was, in high school. So that cleared up a little bit, like, my question of like, so does this dude play jazz? Like, does he come out of jazz at all? He got into Grover Washington Jr. So I was like, okay, I get that. The grooves are kind of funk and the playing is like bluesy licks. It's not jazz with different chords going on. So his high school music teacher, James Gardner, takes him on a professional gig, and apparently on his first professional gig, he gives Kenny G a solo, and like G is supposed to do this quick little cadenza, and instead he comes out and just plays one long note for like a minute held, and the crowd just erupts. So this is what I'm talking about, this Chad shit. Like, that's not just showboating, that's like perverse behavior. That's like a fuck you to people, you know? They show footage of him playing in the 70s, like when he's 20 and stuff, and he's ripping. He's like ripping this funky blues licks over this funk grooves. I mean, it's like, it's hokey the way he's doing it. It's like over the top and hammy. But he's not bullshitting on his instrument, you know? And I mean, later when you hear him noodling, I think he's kind of ripping. He's kind of a ripper. I mean, his chops are it sounds like he practices 3 to 5 hours a day, for sure. So he blows up. I can't remember what his breakout song was. I think maybe it was Songbird. It blew up during drive time, rush hour traffic time, right? They play it at like a local Seattle station, and like the phones blow up. And it's like mostly women. So it's like mostly women driving home from work that make his career at first, you know? Something else interesting about the movie is they're showing how on the first couple records, they on the cover, they showed him in silhouette, like so you couldn't see his face. And they were trying to make it unclear whether he's white or black. And apparently Clive Davis wanted him to be the sound of the ghetto. And Kenny G is a self-aware guy. He's like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. But, it's interesting. They show, it seems like Penny Lane really made a point to show how many black fans he has and Latino fans. Like, it's not a race thing, this phenomenon. There's plenty of black people in the crowd just vibing to Kenny G. And did you know he actually won a NAACP Image Award? Kenny G won that. Like, could I win that? What the fuck? So another big break for him, I guess in the early 80s, he was on Johnny Carson, and he's supposed to play some song that he had, like a duet with a singer or something, and instead, he decides to just at the last minute play another one of his songs, Songbird, which is like his big hit. He just changes, he goes off script at the last minute. This is like these alpha moves that he pulls. Brass balls on this guy. So when you look at what he practices and just what his like vocabulary is, that's where I feel that outsider vibe even more. There's a lot of him noodling and warming up. He's not playing like bluesy stuff. He's playing this rippingly fast arpeggios, patterns, like the kind of stuff you just practice, like just little patterns, melodic patterns and stuff. Absolutely zero like jazz in there. There's no bebop or anything. It's sort of like Coltrane in that it's like these, sheets of sound, but there's like literally just no jazz element at all. And I mean, he just sounds like a guy who practices scales a million hours a day. He says this, yeah, he loved Grover Washington Jr. when he was a kid, but he says, I never really liked jazz. I never really got into, I heard, Charlie Parker and John Coltrane, but I just never really, The honesty is cool, but I'm like, that's outsider shit to me, man. That's kind of nuts. So now, the most outsider vibe in the whole thing for me is him talking about his process for writing songs. This was where I was like, oh my God, this is like out there to me. So he said, he'll be practicing and then he'll find a little melody and he'll be like, ooh, I like that. He says, like, I've got a sixth sense for melody. I really know how to write a beautiful melody. He believes in his melody. So, okay, cool. Not even going to argue with that, but just like, okay, he's a melodist. But he says, okay, so I find a melody, and he goes, and then I need some help. I call upon someone to help me out who can show me, what chords I could put under this, and I want someone on keyboard who can show me a chord and I can pick and choose and I can be like, ooh, I like that one. No, wait, show me another one. Ooh, that's not quite it. Oh, yeah, no, let's use that one. He doesn't know what chords are, dude. He doesn't know. That is like, that's where I was like, this guy's a maniac, okay? Because look, I know not everyone's into all this crazy music there. I understand. He said, in college, he studied accounting, by the way, in college. He was like, I never wanted to learn music theory. It never appealed to me. I just know what sounds good. And I'm like, all right, dude, like, you're not into some academic shit, but like, it's literally chords. Like, he doesn't know what a chord is. That's twisted, man. That is twisted. Like, you have to have some kind of... I'm not even mad at him. You know what I mean? I'm not even like, oh, he's just not a legitimate musician. I'm not talking about legitimate or illegitimate. I'm just, like, fascinated. Like, you have to have some kind of weird, stubborn, like, mental block or, like, refusal or something to just block out learning what chords are as a professional saxophonist, dude. That to me is the most outsider. He made people really mad by doing this duet with deceased Louis Armstrong with like the recording, like he just inserting his saxophone over What a Wonderful World. That doesn't make me mad at all. And even Ratliff agreed. He made the point, he was like, What a Wonderful World was already kind of a pop non-jazz song. Like that was already Louis Armstrong, like quote unquote, like selling out or whatever. It's a great song, but that already wasn't legit jazz. So it's not actually really bastardizing anything. But I'll tell you what is like weird and creepy to me. Later on in the movie, he talks about how he starts to get into jazz. Like he starts to be like, man, like I actually am listening to like Stan Getz. This is actually really good. So, okay, so that's not creepy. That's cool, right? But then, this is only a couple of years ago, so it's very recent before the movie. He decides to make a duo record, or he decides to record a duet with Stan Getz. And he wants to do something that's quote-unquote like more really jazz. Like he wants to do his own version of real jazz. So what he does is, first of all, he like writes these tunes that are going to have more jazzy chords. And what he's going to do is he samples Stan Getz's saxophone, like little snippets of it, and then stitches together melodies that he writes using notes from Stan Getz. It's like a Stan Getz sample bank. Why would you do that? Like, that's a little like, you see what I mean by outsider shit? I mean, you could see it as like a troll thing, like, haha, I'm shitting on the jazz tradition, but it's more earnest than that, But he has the self-awareness to know that it's weird and that it's going to bother people. But he doesn't seem like he's trying to bother people, but he knows it's going to, and he doesn't seem deeply inspired by the idea, but he's like amused by it, but he's not really funny. He's right on this line, this uncanny valley of where is your head, bro? So yeah, so he's sampling together these Stan Getz sampled notes to make these melodies. He's talking about like the jazz, like getting more jazzy chords. So he's got his chord guy, whoever that is, to like try out chords for him to either, approve or reject, one by one. And he's talking about like the new jazz chord progressions that he's using or getting the guy to use. And the way he talks about it, it's like he doesn't know about music or even play an instrument. He's like, these chords, he's like, it makes it sound less happy and less normal, but more, I don't know, like mysterious? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't know how music works, and yet he's this insane virtuoso on a saxophone who practices all fucking day. So, like, if I'm gonna try to think about him in, like, the least outsidery weirdo way, I guess you could look at him like he's a singer, right? Like a pop singer who, like, doesn't really know about music but has a great voice and can hit the notes, and maybe writes these little melodic fragments and then works with a producer who does the chord progressions and the beats. I mean, I guess you could sort of compare him to that. So you could view him as like a singer on the saxophone, but pop singers don't sit around practicing their instrument for 5 hours a day, ripping these arpeggios and melodic patterns. And it's the saxophone, man. So it's like, you know, that's not the same as being a singer, man. So anyway, I absolutely loved this documentary because it filled in for me exactly what I wanted to know. Or, well, it filled it in as best it could because this man is like a cipher, you know? But it gave me as clear a sense as I could get of exactly what I wanted to know about this man, which is what he practices, what he's inspired by, what his process is, what he views his music as. So yeah, I mean, I have literally zero opinion on the man's music itself. It just sort of simply is. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's on HBO. It's called Listening to Kenny G, directed by Penny Lane. I give it 2 thumbs up.